What's up, everyone? Episode number 34 of the Rudis Wrestling Podcast. We have a special guest for this episode. It is Sarah Hildebrandt. How's it going out there in Colorado, Sarah?
It is great. It's a beautiful day, so I cannot complain.
Okay, so, obviously your most recent success of many is the Yarygin win. I think we all got to watch that on Flow. So I think that was from what I tried to research you. I couldn't find a huge amount. That was your first time at that tournament?
That was my second time.
Second time.
Mm-hmm.
So how'd you do the prior time you went?
I went 2 years before that, and I got second. So that was nice to go and finally get that win and finish the tournament.
Okay, cool. So let's, like I said, let's get started all the way at the beginning from you. I do know that you have a brother that wrestles, I think, at Central Michigan.
Yes.
I think I actually crossed paths with your high school coach is Brad Harper.
Yeah, that crazy man, yes.
I remember him from I think he wrestle at Purdue?
Yeah.
Yep, okay, I remember him. So let's go. How'd you get started? Was it your family? Was it your brother? What was it?
So, yeah, I actually have an older brother as well, and then my younger brother, they both wrestled, and I was just kind of drugged to all the tournaments. Eventually, I just, instead of hating it, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to watch this.
Wait, actually. So you hated it?
Yeah, I was the one, it was my weekends, but I wasn't wrestling, but I still had to go watch wrestling. So it's like, I don't want to be here.
Like how are we talking, like 6? We're talking 10?
Yeah, all through those ages.
All of them. Damn.
Yeah.
It's a
all
long
the way
time.
until about 11.
Okay.
And then I was like, you know what, I'm going to pay attention to this sport, actually. And I fell in love from watching it.
So wait, let me ask you this. So ages 6 through 10, does your brother or your dad or your mom or your friend, did any of them say, hey, why don't you come out and wrestle with us? Did they say that?
No.
Never.
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 I mean, living room wrestling for sure.
Of course.
But it never went beyond wrestling in the living room. And so I think too, when I started watching it, I was like, maybe I can, get a one-up in the living room wrestling. But But yeah, so I started keeping stats and stuff. That was just for myself, not for a team or anything. Just keeping stats of my brothers.
Okay.
And then finally, I was like, I'm going to start a girls' team, which was super ambitious for myself.
You said at 11, you said you're going to start a girls' team.
Yeah.
Really?
Out of nowhere, and I was the shyest kid ever. I didn't talk to anybody. And I guess I just didn't think in my mind that I could wrestle with the boys. So I was like, well, I have to start a girls' team.
Yeah.
But nobody came out for my girls' team.
Well, so where you, I mean, let's see, you're 20, what are you, 25, 24?
Yeah, 25.
Okay, so let me 13 years ago. Okay, social media doesn't exist 13 years ago.
No.
I don't think, if I'm timing that right.
Me, it did not.
So where do you advertise this girls' team at?
So we had intramurals at my middle school.
Oh, okay.
Going to the principal and our wrestling coach, and I'm like, hey, I want to start a girls' wrestling intramural. But nobody came.
Nobody? Oh, brutal.
So, and then they didn't have anybody for the 75-pound weight class.
Okay.
For the boys.
Is this middle, we're talking middle school team or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, middle school. So the coach was like, you know what? We need somebody to just not get pinned. And I was like, I'll do it. So I was like a placeholder.
So wait, so let me ask you. So you hate it for 5 years or so. You're resentful that your brothers are stealing your weekends.
Yes.
And then somehow you just say you this flips. Is there can you remember a certain time where it was, maybe watching you got something or you saw it worked, or do you remember that, or you just don't even remember kind of that flip in your mindset?
I remember having been to enough tournaments that I was getting to know the boys on my brother's teams.
Okay.
And they were becoming I was invested in how they were doing. And so that was drawing me in to pay attention to results. So.
Yeah. Okay. So there wasn't one instant. It was just you kind of started getting to know everybody. Got into it. So you get thrown on the boys' team. What happens? You just get.
So I win my first match.
Oh, your first one ever?
First one ever. I didn't even know I won. I was in my stance ready to go again, and they're like, it's done, it's done. I'm like, did I win? What?
Nice.
So that was a good start. And I had a pretty good season. And then my second year coming back, I ended up winning conference. So.
Okay. So is your older brother on a team, younger brother on a team, or are you the only one on the team, or?
Yeah, my older brother had already gone on to high school. My younger
Okay.
brother wasn't in yet, so it was just me,
Okay.
which was a big step. I was the only girl, didn't know anybody. My first day of wrestling practice, I knocked a kid's tooth out.
Oh, geez.
I
How? Headbutt?
I think so.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. It was just like, what am I doing? But, you know, it ended up being a lot of fun. But I remember that first day walking into practice and the door slammed shut behind me and like every single head just turned and looked at me like,
Oh, it's a girl.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I feel like during your era, okay, obviously today, 2018 is much different. So that's we'll still say 2005, 6. You know, I am almost a decade older than you. And I feel like there was a few girls when I was wrestling, but you know, so maybe and you could correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like during that middle 2000s era is when it started gaining some momentum. Obviously, 2004 is the first Olympic year for women. So is there really not that many other girls around at all? Like, say you go to the youth tournaments with your brothers. Do you see 2 girls? Do you see 10 girls? Do you see no girls?
When I was at that age, I was maybe 2 girls,
Okay.
2 or 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
In Indiana. I grew up in Indiana,
Yeah.
so I know in other places it was bigger. But even through high school, it was just me and maybe like 4 girls throughout the whole state wrestling on their men's team.
That's it? Wow.
Yeah, it was so that we knew of, at least on the varsity level.
Sure.
So.
Well, I will tell you. So I run a wrestling academy. Well, we have 3, me, my brother, and Coach Master America, another guy. And I'll tell you, for our 5 through 9-year-olds class, we have a lot of girls. I mean,
Yeah.
probably, I don't know, probably any given time at this academy, 5 to 7 girls in that class. And I'll just tell you from my experience, it's when the boys hit puberty. Tommy Rollins, my podcast host, says that's a performance enhancing drug right there.
Yeah.
And there becomes this disparity, you know, just naturally. And so now, you know, right now I think we have 2 high school girls.
Yeah.
You know,
definitely.
from where we had a bunch and now we don't have any. So I've actually been trying. I don't know. Can you speak on that, the issue there?
About how to keep people around.
Well, I
like,
get no.
numbers.
I guess just the difficult, and maybe you didn't experience it because it doesn't sound like you really wrestled as like essentially boys and girls, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They're the bodies are the exact same, right?
Exactly,
Very
yeah.
similar. And then you hit that puberty, and boys, all of a sudden the boys got big muscles, and you know some of them are unlucky and they don't yet. You know, it doesn't happen until like 15. But so the difficulty females have, because it's like, hey, I was just beating this kid, or I was just as good as this kid, and then all of a sudden he gets his performance-enhancing drug that is puberty, and he's way better. And just like the mental toll that takes on them, like that hey, there's not really much I can do to make up this gap. I mean,
so I cut a lot of weight.
Oh, really?
Once I got to high school, well, my first 2 years of high school, I was just a little old bean. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
But in order to prevent wrestling boys that were going to be so much stronger than me,
Sure.
you know, I would be walking around at like 130, wrestling 103.
Oh, man.
Because of that exact reason. And it was horrible and almost ruined the whole sport for me.
Yeah. And so that sounds like it was self-imposed? You made the decision to cut all the weight?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, my parents obviously did not want me cutting that weight, and my coaches would have, you know, at that point in my career were super supportive of me. But even to myself, I knew I was going to fit into the lineup at 103, maybe 112. But my best chance at a state title was down at 103, where I'm, you know, essentially just wrestling kids who haven't gone through puberty yet.
Yeah. So for me, I see that as a huge hurdle for girls' participation. Obviously, it's growing. I think there's about 10 states where, you know, girls have high school state championships. Yeah. Which is exciting. Obviously, Wisconsin, we actually have a large population of female wrestlers, but we do not have WIA sanctioned women's state tournament yet. Okay, so high school, you say you cut to 103. What was your success level like against the boys?
It was all right. I feel like I was overrated in high school.
Overrated? What do you mean by that?
I was like the girl wrestler, so I got a lot of attention, but it wasn't like it wasn't like I was super, super great. But I wrestled varsity my junior and senior year.
Okay.
Made it. So in Indiana, they have sectionals, regionals, semi-state, and state. Made it to semi-state. I was the first girl to ever do that.
And Indiana's one of the only states that has one division. Yep.
Yes, one division.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was good. It was all right. I won a lot, but I lost a lot. I cut a lot of weight. I was mad all the time.
That's miserable, right?
It was the worst ever.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, that cutting. No, it's all good. That cutting weight it takes such a mental toll, and obviously for you it was kind of self-imposed, so you decided to do it, and I think that's hard. But then when it gets to be your coaches telling you to wrestle with your parent, that's like double hard, and that causes a lot of issues with younger wrestlers.
Yeah, I think the weight cutting culture we've created, even at that young age, high school is so young, it's just dumb. We got it wrong with weight cutting, and stuff like now in my career is something I completely put all my emphasis on. I don't cut weight at all anymore, so, and now I'm the most successful I've ever been. I think there's a big correlation between those things.
Cool. So after high school, I guess the whole time, are you competing in the girls' nationals as well, all the way through? You're wrestling on your high school team, obviously, but you're also in the spring, summers. So what was your success level there?
So I won Fargo.
Okay.
That. So yeah, I did Fargo stuff, and then Body Bar is a big women's tournament.
Yep.
And they didn't really have cadet worlds or anything when I was that age group. But if I did well, like one year I was still a cadet, we made like junior Pan Am teams, so things like that. So I did that growing up in high school and stuff, and then continuing on to my younger years in college.
Okay, so I saw that you went to King College for, I think it was for 2 years, I believe, or maybe just one, and you won a national title right off the bat. Is that correct?
So I was there all 4 years. I left early my senior year, but I finished out the national championships.
Okay.
And I was in the finals every year, but I only won twice. So my last 2 years I won.
Dang, I better get some bad information on the internet. I swear I searched this.
The internet, man.
What the heck? I Googled you like 3 different times trying to find information. We need to get you a Wikipedia page or something.
We need to set this up, yeah.
Seriously. Okay, so walk us through that. Who's your coach? Who's your teammates? Because obviously, let's see, you go to college in what, 2011? Mm-hmm. There's not, I mean, now it seems like there's a new women's program being added every other day or something. We just got.
I know, it's crazy.
It's awesome. I just saw there was a new one in Missouri yesterday. There's a new one coming to Wisconsin next year, which will be our second. Yeah, it feels like there's this rapid expansion of female wrestling opportunities. But I think if I remember right, in 2011, there's not a huge amount of opportunity. I mean, am I off on that?
No, you're completely right. I think there was like 14 schools I was picking between. And then on top of that, you're only looking at like 3 that are legitimate wrestling programs. Yeah. But yeah, so Jason Mormon was my coach. King College when I went there, was not like the number 1 program in the country when I decided to go there. But somehow.
Who was?
Who else went?
Who was? Yeah.
Oklahoma City.
Oh yeah, okay, I remember that.
Yeah, and they were the powerhouses, like 5-time national champs, something ridiculous like that. But we really, I mean, now looking back, the team we had in that room was ridiculous. I mean, it was myself, Haley Algello, who's an Olympian, Allie Reagan.
You beat her to make the world team last year.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Uh-oh.
But, Allie Reagan, multiple world medalist. Yep. Julia Salata, Amanda Hendy, just like, the girls who make up our national team now. Yeah. We're all in that college room. So it was so competitive. I got so much better than I think I could have been anywhere else because I was working out with girls that were, on that senior level, working for that Olympic level, not just like collegiately. Yeah. But yeah, so that was an experience.
So was that what attracted you to King College? Did you see those people in the room and said, was it you saying, hey, I want to be a part of this. I know this girl's really good. I can train with her. Or what made that decision work for you?
I actually didn't know. I was so ignorant about women's wrestling going into college.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Weirdly enough, yeah.
So, wait. So at age 11, you started taking statistics. So were you into like NCAA men's wrestling, or we just didn't care?
Just strictly my brothers.
That's it, your brothers.
Yeah, I didn't know anything. But yeah, I didn't really know much of the girls. I didn't have any friends at tournaments.
What? Why not?
I'm like the weird kid.
Are you antisocial? Are you
Yeah, that was me,
introverted?
just like
Okay.
headphones on always, hood up.
Oh man.
um, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but then, I quickly became aware how lucky I was that I was surrounded by such good training partners.
Wait, so how'd you pick it? If you don't know anything about these girls, you just threw a dart and said,
I know, it
boom.
was crazy that I didn't pick Oklahoma City. It's so weird. No, so when I went on my visit,
Okay.
the King girls took me to this intramural game or whatever
Okay.
they were playing, and I like loved it. I was like, oh my god, I want to play intramurals. And then sure enough, like, all 4 years at college I was like intramural queen, like
No,
every
you.
single
Oh
year.
my gosh.
And that's what made me pick that school.
Wow, that is
I was
funny.
like, what an experience ahead of me.
Wow, nothing about the academics, the wrestling team, but you had a fun time playing intramural sports.
Yeah, it was a blast. I had a good time. I was like,
Okay.
I could see myself here.
Wow, nice. Okay, well you get there, you're surrounded by, like you said, a who's who in the women's wrestling community.
Mhm.
So is it one of those? 'Cause I know my experience. I got my ass whooped every day. Is it one of those experiences, or is it you're holding your own right away?
I was definitely, I did pretty well my freshman year.
Okay.
But with that said, it was like I said, my first introduction to just being on a women's team. And so it was humbling in the fact that it's like,
Oh,
I lost. I was losing. There were people who could um, beat me bad.
yeah.
And so that was a learning experience too. Like this is big. Women's wrestling is a thing. There's a lot of great wrestlers out there,
Yeah.
and so that was a learning process. But
So I mean, did you have the misconception that you wrestle with boys and now you're just gonna dominate these girls, or is you kind of said that was a learning process? What is there was there any type of perception going into that?
maybe a little. I was like, yeah, I've grown up wrestling dudes. I got this. But a lot of girls were coming from men's programs,
Sure.
and so that's different now. I feel like lots of girls are coming from a women program, but back then, yeah, it was just a bit competitive. I had to fight for every match. So, but I ended up second that year, making a lot of improvements. I grew a
Nice.
ton as a wrestler.
So let me ask you. You said something else that I want to ask you about. You said the first time on the girls' team, right? And then you kind of also said you were the weird kid, introverted, whatever. So what's the dynamic change? And so you're in high school. You're the only girl on the team. Are you just one of the boys? Are you treated differently? Are you put on a pedestal? What's that like? And then the dynamic to being on for what it's worth, a highly competitive female team. Is there a big change for you mentally, or how does that work?
So on my boys' team, I mean, they were my best friends, those
Okay.
boys. But at the end of the day, it was like, you're a girl. It wasn't
Mhm.
like every weekend we were hanging out. But they were my best friends growing up through high school. And then I got to college. And I mean, I think in that room specifically, there was just so many good people. So it's like, and you threw them all in a room. So there
Yep.
definitely were personalities.
Absolutely.
But I think it kind of drove us. We were so competitive and so willing to beat the crap out of each other that it ended up helping us.
Mhm.
And so wanted to prove like, no, I'm the best. But yeah, it was intense in that room a lot of times. But we were a close team, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah. So I mean, I had a great college experience as well, and it's like, I don't really see it any other way. Is that if you really care about those who you're training with, you're going to give them your best every day. You're going to try to kick their butt because you'd rather have them have those difficulties in the room every single day than outside of it. But I mean,
Yeah.
at least for my team, it was like, hey, we fight in the room. As soon as we walk in the room, we forget about it and we're best friends again. And that's kind of how it always went. So as you get older at King, I'm assuming you became one of the leaders of the team?
Yeah, I was definitely captain, and that was fun getting to step into a leadership role because I didn't necessarily have that in high school. Maybe I wasn't good enough or I was the girl, but in college I definitely started to fill a leadership role, and that was I enjoyed it a lot. I liked
Nice.
stepping into that.
Okay, so take us through the rest of your career.
Mhm.
Your freshman year, you take second. Sophomore year,
Second.
Second. Who'd you lose to both years?
So I lost to Michaela Hutchison.
She's from Alaska.
Oklahoma City.
Oh,
yeah, she's from Alaska.
She's from Alaska. Yeah, okay, I remember her.
Yeah. Lost her my freshman year. Lost to Kat Perez my second year. She went to school with me, so we had 2 King kids in the final that year.
Okay.
And then my senior year.
Did you usually beat her in the room?
She actually, we would scrap a little. She came down a weight class.
Oh, jeez. So did she surprise you, or did you know it was coming?
I wasn't sure. Eventually, we're training together. I'm like, oh, you're definitely cutting weight.
Yeah.
But
I don't really recognize that name. Did she stop competing after college?
She did, yeah.
She did, okay. So she,
yeah.
Okay.
Lots of concussions.
Oh, man. Stinks.
Yeah.
So who'd you beat your last 2 years? Finals?
My last year, I beat a girl my junior year, I beat a girl named Katie Chesson. She was from Menlo.
Okay.
And then my senior year, I beat Hannah Gricewood, who also went to King. So,
oh wow,
another teammate in the finals.
Another teammate. Nice. Okay, so post college, from what I take, you went straight to the Olympic Training Center. Yes.
Yeah. So I left school a little early, for whatever reasons.
Did you graduate? You graduated?
I graduated.
Okay, cool.
Finished online, but left school.
Were you still totally introverted, or are you extroverted yet?
So I was like introverted Sarah, then I was like extroverted. Then my senior year, I was like, nobody speak to me.
Oh man.
I was like nose in a book always.
What were you reading?
Oh, Name of the Wind was probably what I was reading then. Have you ever read that book?
No, what is it? I never heard of it.
It's the greatest book of all time.
I've only in my adult life read one fiction book. So if it's fiction, I'm sorry. I've read that one fiction book I read was called Pillars of the Earth, and it was like that thick.
Oh yeah, I know that book. I haven't read it, but I know it.
Yeah. So I'm totally nonfiction. So I don't know Name of the Wind.
Name of the Wind is definitely as fantasy as you get. I'm a fantasy nerd.
Okay.
Lived in fantasy books pretty much all
So we're
the time.
talking like sci-fi or aliens, or what does that mean?
Oh yeah, I love sci-fi, but that book is like very fantasy, like long ago, riding horses, magic, wizards.
God. Oh geez.
It's amazing. Check it out.
Okay, cool. My wife's actually watching some weird Scottish series, and I got to leave the room. I'm like, this is garbage. I'm not watching this.
Oh, no, then maybe you won't enjoy it. Sounds awesome, though.
My argument, listen, this is my argument is the world is so insane. I mean, when you really get down to it, how could you possibly not be entertained enough with nonfiction? That's my argument. That's the argument I have with my wife all the time.
Okay, I agree, but it's like I live inside this world and I'm sick of it. Sometimes
I'm gonna give you a hug.
I want to escape. Okay, thank you. Like I want to go somewhere different. Like we live here already.
Sure.
Sick of it's too harsh of a phrase. I can agree with that.
All right,
I do. Thanks for that.
Yeah. I'll keep the positivity. Okay, so you go back home before the training center.
Yeah, I thought I could pull off training at home. Wrongo.
Yeah, who would you train with? Because it's the high school kids still, right?
Yeah, that kid's tooth I knocked out first day of practice in middle school. He's like my best friend still.
What's his name?
And he wrestled. What's up?
What's his name? Would we know him?
Oh, no, Taylor Hart. He just, stayed around there and wrestled. But that's what I thought I was going to do. And my coach, Brad Harper, obviously there. So... No, I quickly realized I was very wrong.
Yeah.
So then I came out to the training center.
Okay. And so I guess one of the things I was interested in when I read your thing is, and again, this could be, I'll totally honest with you, I don't follow women's wrestling as closely as I follow men's wrestling. As we're talking, I know most of the names, I know where they're from. I get it, right? But like NCAA wrestling, I'm obsessive about NCAA wrestling.
Yeah.
And so for what it seems like for me is there's a lot of girls that make the team at 19, 20, 21. And for you made your first team, I think, at 25. What was it that, I don't want to say that took so long because, 25 is still.
No, but really, I asked myself that.
Okay, well, so it's a fair question. What took you so long?
Self-discipline.
Okay.
Really, I feel like, it was just like I could find an excuse for reasons why I wasn't making the team, or, like, oh, I'm going to practice every day. Like, maybe I'm just not good enough. But it was like so much more than just the wrestling aspect. It was like everything else, my whole lifestyle. Like, the only thing that made me an elite athlete was that I just trained every day at the
Yeah.
wrestling room. That was it. I didn't,
Sure.
anything else was not like that. So, after I dislocated my elbow,
So what else? I mean, if it's obviously it's too personal, don't get into it. But is it?
Yeah.
Is it? You say, is it your partying? Is it your playing video games or reading reading sci-fi books all night? Like, what is it about? You said you go to practice every day, or are you just not putting in the effort at practice? Because you kind of said this. What was it about that that you feel like you weren't doing as much as you could?
I mean, yeah, I definitely don't think I was being as intense in a practice room as I am now.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely was partying too much.
Okay.
I definitely ate like crap, stayed up late reading, and all of it,
Okay. So was
and
it?
that leads to just no confidence, right?
Yeah.
So
Was it just?
then on top of that,
So what flipped for you? Was it just a maturity thing? Was there one event that said, "Okay, Sarah, let's go"? What was it?
yeah, I guess I dislocated my elbow
Okay.
in 2017. I thought I was going to be on the world team that year. Obviously wasn't. And it's funny, that's probably the one time I could have had an excuse for losing, right? Because my elbow's out of place.
Yeah.
But instead, I took it as a lot of self-reflection and just kind of be like, dude, you have 3 more years and you've done nothing with your career. Like, 3 more years till the next Olympic cycle and nothing's changed. Like,
Yeah.
what gives? And so, and then the weigh-in procedures, how they've changed those,
Yeah.
that kind of forced me to change my diet, and it just
Okay.
all started trickling to discipline everywhere else.
Yeah. That's huge. I mean, that's obviously. I mean, one of the things I preach a lot is having self-awareness. Understanding, recognizing, and being able to admit what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, where you need to get better, and that kind of stuff. So, okay, so you hurt your elbow. This is setting us up perfect. You hurt your elbow. You realize, hey, I gotta get serious. I got 3 years to the Olympics. I would say I'm older now, so I'm gonna throw myself under the bus. I would say peak physical age for me was like 25 through 29. So you're entering your peak.
Yes.
And you got to go in 3 years. So take us through. What leads up to that 2018 Final X? You beat Haley Agello, former teammate. Maybe talk us through that, bittersweet, or maybe you didn't like her. I don't know. Maybe you love her. I'm not sure.
I mean, yeah, Haley and I are just growing up with the sport together, so I definitely know her. With that said, I know we're fierce competitors, but we're also Team USA, so
yeah.
It's all good there. But yeah, leading into Final X, I had a really great season internationally, and that was a big turning point for me. Sometimes I would do pretty well domestically, but I wasn't making any way in the international scene. So I was feeling so confident. I felt better at Final X than I did at World Championships.
Really?
So yeah, there were not a lot of doubts in my mind going into Final X. Training was going really well, and I had competed so often, which is another thing we don't really do at the senior level. Some people don't do as often, but I was competing, once or twice every month.
Damn. How are you going? You were overseas all the time?
Yeah.
But that's a lot. I mean, so I would venture to guess our listeners aren't as well versed in international wrestling. And so, most guys, most girls wrestling at that level, I'm saying I would venture to guess, say 6 to 8 tournaments for the whole year.
Whole year,
probably,
yep.
And so you're saying 1 to 2 a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I competed 12 or 13 times last year.
Wow. That's impressive. Honestly, I would venture to agree with you is that I don't think people at that level compete enough. And I think it's obviously difficult. It's like the NCAA season where, hey, you're wrestling in Iowa, you go to Minnesota and Wisconsin and Illinois.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't. You go to Russia. That's a big trip. So there's not as many opportunities available. But I do think that's an issue. So I think that's interesting that you mentioned that plays into some of your success last year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just building confidence from every single match from that. And I feel like wrestling live is the best teacher anyway. Like getting that experience, getting different looks, and we would do things like I would be in Sweden, I would just go wrestle in Ukraine the next weekend, or 2 tournaments in Russia, and just start doubling up on tours like that. Nice. I think I was gone 6 months of the year last year, so a lot of traveling, but it paid off. And as we get closer to the Olympics, that competition schedule starts shrinking. But I think at that time in my career, perfect timing to do all that.
Okay, so you beat Haley Agello, Final X. Is that someone? Had you wrestled her before? I mean, I see your teammates in the room you had, but competition wise, what was your success level prior to that with her? And then was that like I know for some people when they've wrestled someone a whole bunch and then they finally beat them, it's like boom, and they're just confidence takes a huge step up. Is that like what it's like for you, or kind of walk us through that series?
Yeah, so I wrestled Haley a lot when we were growing up, I guess. I mean, senior level tournaments, and I had never lost to her. And then
really?
She went down a weight class. Yeah, she went down a weight class, and so we didn't see each other for a while. And then she started finding a lot of success, world teams, Olympic team, obviously. So I guess that was in the back of my head, but also, I felt pretty confident. I mean, sure, I've beaten her in the past, but even just in my training leading in that year.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, in general, I think that is a hump to get over, beating someone you lost to before. I beat 2 people I lost to just last year at Yarygin this year. So that's huge confidence-wise.
Yeah. Okay, so first world team, you're going to Worlds. Let's go. Come on, tell us all about it.
Yeah. Okay, so 2 months leading into Worlds, I think I cried every day.
Stop. Why?
Oh, man. I just don't know. Maybe I was just in my head so much, or maybe I was actually wrestling like garbage. But definitely, like I said, I felt better at Final X than I did for World Championships. Yeah. But we get to World Championships, and
so I'll tell you, I think it's hard. I'm not gonna say the name, but I think it's hard for the world team members because they're focusing on their opponents. They're making sure their weight's low, and then everybody else who didn't make the world championship, their weight's high. They don't give a damn about their weight, and
they beat you up, and you're like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah, and they go in there, and there's one guy. He did really well at the world championships. This is kind of more my era. And listen, he couldn't beat anybody in practice. He was terrible. He was losing to everybody, and it was like. But you get it. Everyone else is up in weight. They're not focused on a certain opponent. You're training all the time. You're really keyed in. So yeah, I mean that is I think that's
a huge thing.
See, it's hard. It's a really tough thing to get over mentally.
Oh yeah, I mean I would be going out there for practice matches, just getting teched, and I'm like, what am I about to go do? Oh my god. But then came together at Worlds, and I was feeling good. Like I kind of like a big stage. I feel like I perform well. And I was excited. So despite having horrible training leading into it, once we got there, I was excited. I was so pumped up. And I wrestled a weird tournament.
Okay.
Just got to places that I don't really wrestle, and it was sloppy wrestling, but I wrestled.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess what would you say? So I watched a whole bunch of I watched a few matches from last year. I watched, I think, all of your Yarygin matches. And you seem kind of scrambly, high pressure, lots of offense. But for me, it didn't seem like – and so I guess that's kind of – I don't want to say my style, but more my style. It seems like you're really confident in a lot of positions. It doesn't seem like you're like, oh, I just want to wrestle in these 2 positions, or you're really hesitant. Maybe – am I totally wrong?
No, I agree. And that's something that's just really started to happen within the last 2 years. And I think it's because of how much wrestling I've been doing, because you just get in so many positions versus just only working my single leg or only front headlocks. But yeah, let's wrestle anywhere. I love to scramble. I love weird unorthodox moves.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, I guess the last thing I want to ask you about is obviously we're on the Rudis Wrestling podcast. Oh, there you go. I got my sweatshirt on. You can see, obviously. Not all of my clothes. All of my clothes everywhere are Rudis. My wife makes fun of me. I got a Rudis shirt here. I got Rudis socks on. It's all Rudis. So you are the first girl signed by Rudis, and apparently, which I didn't realize this. I thought Helen or Adeline had a clothing line with their respective companies, but I guess they don't. So you're going to be the first woman to have her own clothing line in the wrestling space. That's pretty fantastic. How do you feel about it?
Oh my God. It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah, just the whole process of getting it set up has been so cool and unbelievable. And even the just comments I'm getting back from people like, when is your line dropping? I want to buy something.
I
And I'm
saw it
like,
on Twitter a couple times today.
yeah, just
Yeah.
melts my heart. I'm so lucky and grateful. And I think it's great. I think this is such a great step for women and
Yeah.
for women's wrestling. And I'm so excited that I get to be a part of it and kind of lead the way with it.
Fantastic. So what else do you think, what does the women's wrestling community need to do to keep, they're obviously moving in a really good direction. We talked about that already. To keep keep it going, keep the momentum going, build bigger, better. What would you say? What would you say to someone like me who's running a wrestling academy? How do I increase my girls' participation? And what can we do for that?
Okay, so so I was the only girl wrestler at my school. Now we have like 40 girl wrestlers at my school, which is
Really?
insane.
Is there a
Yeah.
girls' team?
Mm-hmm.
So you actually started it. This is what you wanted to do like 15 years ago.
I know, right? I mean, I started indirectly, I guess. And my coach would literally just stand outside and be like of the school, he works at the school, and she'd be like, hey, come to wrestling practice. I think you'd be a great wrestler, da, 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 da. Reaching out to girls like that. But I think really offering, letting girls know that they're welcome there and it's a comforting place. That's a big step. And at least when I was there, I was hesitant. Like, I don't think this is for me. This is for boys, right?
Sure.
And that's the first step. And you get one or two girls, that's all it takes, because they're going to bring their friends and they're going to see that it's comfortable and really providing a very comfortable space. Girls will bring their friends and it'll grow just that way. Once they see that it is okay and it is a place for women and it's empowering and it's fun. But yeah, I think that starts in the clubs and coaches reaching out even to people like I said, my coach would just point to somebody in the hallway and be like, I want you at wrestling practice.
Nice.
But I do think that's happening. And I was just in New York last week talking to them.
I saw. That was cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
We were
talking about growing the sport, women's sport.
What was something about in business? Wasn't it about a business meeting also or something?
Yeah, we did a bunch of things. But yeah, we did like wrestlers in business, I think that's called.
Yep, I saw that.
Yeah, and we kind of just did a panel, reached out to a lot of girls there. And there were girls there who were not wrestlers who came to listen to us speak. And I'm like, wow, look how interested they are, and they're just unsure. And I get messages on Instagram all the time, like, I don't know if I'm going to be good enough, or I don't know if I'm welcome there. I'm like, you are, of course, And so I think that's where there's this miscommunication that women are welcomed here. And that's all it's going to take. They just, that little bit of comfort that's not being communicated properly everywhere yet.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like there's some people who still say wrestling is for boys and not for girls. But I feel like by far and wide, and maybe it's because the community's been forced to, but because of, say, Title IX issues, a lot of people see women's colleges adding wrestling as as a solution to the problem, right? Because the problem is men's wrestling is getting cut at college, and there needs to be an equivalent female sport. So obviously, the easiest female equivalent sport is wrestling because you don't have to add a new room or anything else. So I feel like, it's fantastic. I feel like women's wrestling is being welcomed with open arms in 95% of the wrestling community.
I totally agree, and I hear the support loud and clear, and it's awesome. I feel like anything we put out there is being received well by people. But yeah, there are still a few people who are just like I said, I get messages. They're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yo, I get paid to do this. Get away."
They would sit. Really? People say that?
Yeah, definitely still get some messages every now and then, but whatever,
Yeah, it's fine.
I feel like that's anybody doing anything.
That's true. So, okay, well, you got any closing words for us? Anything else you want to tell us about?
Really, just I'm super excited about this whole Rudis thing. I'm grateful. And then my clothing line will be dropping soon, so be on the lookout.
Okay, and what's your next tournament?
I will be in Bulgaria, and we compete the first few days of March. So
Okay.
that's another ranking event.
Nice.
Be out there.
Okay, awesome, Sarah. We appreciate your time. Hopefully, we'll have you back on after you make another world team or after the Final X or something like that. And that's all I have for you. So have a great day and talk to you later.
Sweet. Thank you so much.